Hello, I'm Malcolm Haslett.
And I'm Janice Baker. Have you ever wondered what it must have been like for immigrants who came to Australia just before the Second World War?
Janice, in this episode we meet a woman who is truly a survivor. And that's next on Our Time. Great to have your company once again, isn't it?
It is.
Now, Janice, I know you remember the Second World War well, but...
I do.
Yeah. So the truth is, we don't. No. And the truth is, we don't really know very much about what happened in Australia after the Second World War because we weren't here. No. But I was in 1948. And I know that...
Long before mine.
Yes, it was, sadly. But I know that in those years, we were all very sort of wary of anyone who came from anywhere else in Australia. And we had a lot of immigration from Greece and Italy, but we really didn't know all that much about the people who were coming over here. And it's really interesting to know that during the Second World War, most immigrants who had previously come to Australia, particularly the men, were sort of put into labour camps and just sort of put out of the way because they were seen as the enemy. It's really frightening when you think that we're still doing the same thing to people trying to come to the country today.
True, yeah.
So nothing much has changed. But we thought this story you would really be interested in. Our special guests today are...
Vittoria, Cirillo, did I say that correctly?
Yeah.
And Dora Crupi.
Welcome, ladies.
Hello, girls.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You weren't here then,
No.
but your mother was. So, Vittoria, tell us, how did your story start coming to Australia?
From the beginning,
Yes.
we left Naples, and from there we passed through the Strait of Gibraltar, and that's where it was rough, and people, you know, were carrying down. They weren't hungry anymore, and
No, they
go
were throwing it over the side, I would imagine.
for a bit of soup, you know, and then as the boat was flying, the soup flies out of the bowls.
Is that right? How old were you, Victoria, then?
I was only 10.
10.
Now, you came to Australia because your father had come here before that.
Yeah.
In what year was that?
I think he came here in 1926.
Right. So he'd come before there was any sort of trouble. And why did he come to Australia, do you think?
He had been to America, and he thought he'd try out to come to Australia.
And where did he end up settling?
He passed through, they went through Tasmania, and he tried under the mines, and he wasn't good enough, so he left Tasmania, and from there he passed through Victoria, and there he was telling us that they had a loaf of bread, and they walked this way and that way. They put it on a tree trunk, and they walked that far, there was nowhere they could go, so they had to go back and pick up the loaf of bread.
It's amazing, these stories. He ended up, though, in Queensland, didn't he?
Yes.
In the end.
Yeah.
Now, when you came out, you were almost 10.
Yeah,
And-
I was 10, exactly 10.
Exactly 10, but you'd never met your father.
No, I've never seen my father.
Isn't that incredible?
Yeah.
So clearly it wasn't an immaculate conception because obviously he must have been at home at some point.
No, he left Mum pregnant with me.
Oh.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
To start in the new world.
Yeah,
But then for your mother to obviously have to look after you
Yeah.
and the family.
yeah, well,
without
I
a husband.
had another sister,
Yes.
and she fell in love and they got married, so when we came, she was left behind with her husband.
She stayed, yes.
Yeah.
So we've got a picture of you with your mum. I love this because back in those days, often there weren't photographs. Let's look at the first photo because that's interesting in itself. So this is
This is what Mum took to send to my father.
right.
See, that's the
And
elder
then-
sister there.
Then, very beautifully painted after the event, you pop Grandpa in the background. Well, you didn't, but obviously the photographer did.
No. I looked for it, and when I got Dad's photo, I thought he's got to be with the family.
Oh, that's your father?
Yes.
Yes.
Right.
That was as he was a soldier,
Right.
because he was in the army and a prisoner of war in Germany.
Right.
You know, he had a life too.
God.
In the First World War.
I don't know which one.
Yeah, it would have
now.
been. But then he comes to Australia, and this is your family, your mum in the middle?
Yes,
And you're the pretty one,
that's
right?
what we looked like when we arrived here. Yeah.
10-year-old girl.
See.
And you've got the string of pearls, is that around your neck? The yellow
Yes,
pearls?
that's a present my mother bought when we went to one of the saints' procession in Italy.
So while all this is going on, your dad starts working in Queensland.
Yeah.
And we've got a shot of him here because he's madly driving, what is that?
Some cart. What's them?
It's a horse cart. There's no
Planting
tractors or anything at
No.
those time, and it's a big horse in front, and that's. They used to have bags of lime as well. I can't see what he's
The
carrying.
sugar canes.
It would be sugar
is
cane,
it?
yes.
Sugar cane.
We haven't included you yet, Dora, simply because you're not born yet. We don't know about you yet. You haven't
We'll get
started.
to you in a minute.
We're not into your story yet.
That's okay.
The thing I find amazing, though, is how did you learn English? Because
Yes.
your school, where did you go to school? You were 10,
Yeah.
so had you gone to school back in Italy?
I was just in the first grade, first
Right.
class, you know, and I still got the book
Have you?
here.
You've kept everything.
Yeah.
We had a look through all your bits and pieces beforehand. But so you came to Australia and you didn't speak English?
No.
Could you read? Could you read Italian? Then?
Yeah.
And obviously do arithmetic and all of those things.
Arithmetic,
But then suddenly everything's new.
it's right. Everything's new. When
So-
you look around, everything's interesting, you know. Oh, you see this done, you see that done, you
But
want to
apart
do
from
them.
you not being able to, your mother wouldn't have spoken the language
no,
either,
no.
so you
My
all had
mother
to.
never spoke English at all.
No.
Was we had a bit of disaster after three months we were here, because my elder sister was pregnant and she was having her first baby, and we got the letter from Italy saying that she had a lovely baby girl. 20 days later we got a letter that she was dead. My elder
awful
sister.
Your
stories,
sister
aren't
died.
they?
Yes.
Gosh.
So that broke my mother's heart,
Oh,
and she would never go outside the door outside.
Oh,
For
Vittoria.
10 years she never,
And I suppose she wore black the whole time too,
exactly
which
the
was
whole
the tradition.
time.
So sad.
But you had to learn how to speak English.
Yes,
So
and
how did you
then-
learn to speak English?
We had to, and lucky we had a couple of neighbours. Actually, one of the neighbour, an elderly lady, had a grandson sent from England during the war with the Germans, and they sent all the children, if they could, to Australia. I don't know if you knew that.
I
But
did. And
this
they
was-
sent them everywhere, actually,
This
just away
was
from
one
London.
of the lads that was staying with his grandmother.
Right.
And he was really good because Dad had rented a house and we living next door. So he used to come over and the book and used to, A for apple and...
Go through the alphabet.
But I'm told by your daughter that this comic book had a lot to do with it as well.
Yes, that's another English girlfriend that we were close by once Dad built a house, and we were across the road. And she used to get this English book from England, because they were English. And when she finished, she'd give them to me, and because as soon as I saw it, I put my head in the book and kept reading them all the time. Learned this, learned that, you know.
It's an amazing,
Amazing.
it is an amazing story, isn't
From a
it?
comic book.
From a comic book, yeah. So as life goes on for you, obviously you meet someone and fall in love eventually. What happened between learning how to read and finally getting married?
Well, then it's a long story too. after the war,
Well, your father was taken away from you, wasn't he, during
No,
the war?
no.
Didn't he have to go to a labour camp?
No, he was the only one that was left
that's
there
right.
in that district, and he was working for an Italian fellow from the north of Italy, and he was married to an Australian woman, and she was a lovely lady, and Dad was like a son to them, and he used to look after the chooks and all that sort of thing, and he was allowed to grow tomatoes, grow...
So they gave him a little piece of land so he could be
Yeah,
self-sufficient.
so they had a sugarcane farm, and the sugarcane farm was
Plenty
pretty
of land.
big.
Yes.
And there was space where he could do whatever he liked. He used to watermelon, this big, they used
Good
to grow.
heavens.
Amazing.
And we,
But
So-
had he done that before? Did he grow so he knew what to do, or did he learn that?
no, he
While he
knew
was
how
here,
to
he
do
knew how
his
to do that.
before he left
Okay.
Italy. Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
So I think we've got a photo here of you getting married. So I'm going to jump straight to you getting married.
Okay.
So the thing that I love about these photos are, I think we've all got parents now who had these sorts of staged photographs. And obviously Dora and some other children came from that. So we'll be back in a minute to introduce Dora to you properly and find out more about this fascinating story of Vittoria.
We have these lovely guests with us today. Vittoria, your story is quite amazing. Vittoria was just telling me from the age of 10 to the age of 12, you learnt the language well enough to be an interpreter
Yes.
at 12 years of age. That's amazing. And why did you have to do that?
Well, it was after the Second World War started, and they took these people's husbands away and brought them down at Loveday in South Australia. And of course, it's typical, the men were the bosses and they learned the English, and the women, Italians, most of them, never learned English because they never went out to do the shopping. And this one here, they took her husband away, and apparently they came to know that someone was trying to molest her, you know, sex and that sort of thing. And then my father was friendly with a Malaysian man who had brought up a little boy into a big man, and he was a detective. So the Malaysian man said, if you need anybody to do interpreting, I can get you someone. So Dad and the Malaysian man were quite friendly because he used to come and sell bananas and that. And that's how it was that he asked Dad, could I go and do the
And
interpreting?
help out.
And
It's
help them
an
out.
amazing story, because what comes through in your story, which we really haven't got to yet, is just how capable you've been all these years in doing so many diverse things. We've got a shot here, which is sort of interesting, of, is that your mum?
Yeah, that's
Feeding
Mum.
a little goat, is it a goat?
Yes, we had a goat.
And that's you, and you're
yeah,
obviously quite grown up by this time. How old are you
Yeah,
here?
yeah.
How old do you think you are here?
There, yeah, I'd be about 13 or 12.
Okay. So by this time you're speaking 2 languages comfortably enough to be able to interpret for other people.
Well, yes.
And you'd also started doing sewing and needlepoint stuff. When did you begin doing that?
That was just after the war finished, and
Here's an example of some of your work. Was this
Yeah.
hand done, or was this done with a machine?
that's done with a round ring that you put your material in, it stretch it, and
Oh,
then
yes.
you hold the ring and you work it. And
Did you win? And this is obviously with the
Yeah.
old. It's not a singer, is it? Is it a
yes,
singer?
it's a singer. It's a very old one.
Good gracious. Isn't that amazing? Well, but you all, and this one here, there's a story about this cow I love.
That's in Mildura. That's after I was married.
Yeah, after you were married.
Yes.
These are your 2 children. But
Yes.
what came from the cow?
Milk.
Milk. And what did you do with the milk?
Oh, I made everything. Cheese, I made ice cream, cream, butter, with all, because there's a lot of milk.
Yes.
Milk in the morning and every night.
But you can't just run to a supermarket and buy
So
a couple of litres of
yes,
milk.
so she had to provide for the family, and that's
You've
how
got to
you
do it
survived
all.
too.
Yeah, but being in the vineyard and nothing else around you, you can have a cow or 2.
Yeah.
Yes.
And even a horse.
So we've got to talk to you now.
Dora, it's your turn.
What's it been like for you having a mum so self-sufficient and so capable?
It's been a true inspiration. Like, we're 4 girls, she's got 4 daughters, and we look up to Mum, and she is a true inspiration
No,
to
you look
us
down
all.
to Mum, she's
Well,
shorter than
yeah,
you.
I know, we're getting to be the same level. But she's been through so much, and always a positive attitude. And of course, we kind of embrace people who are in need, like she did at the women's shelter when she was, well, we haven't
We've
got
sort
to
of
that,
got to
but
explain
yeah,
that
yeah.
because in those days, I suppose, marriage was just accepted that everybody got married and had
That's
children,
right,
particularly in the culture as well.
Oh, yes.
But your husband wasn't so kind to you, and it was necessary that you left him at one point.
Yeah, well, the doctor, when I went to the doctor, explained what was going on. Instead of sending me back home with my bag, whatever I had on, send me to a women's shelter straight away.
And you were able then later to do the same sort of thing. Do you want to just tell that story?
Yes, well, she actually became a great advocate for women and abused women, and she would go and speak to people and help them. They'd go and source clothes and furniture and things like that. They actually kept her at the women's shelter, and she then became one of the staff and assisted with women. And she also was marched on Parliament House for, advocate for women and women who were abused. And so in those days, like a European woman of her age, it just didn't happen. You just didn't leave, home. And
no,
so,
definitely not.
yeah,
And you put
and
up
so
with all sorts
she's
of
risen
nonsense.
above all of that, and has helped and encouraged many other people along the way as well.
And
So-
been incredibly productive.
Yes.
Yes.
Some of these photographs, you brought this in because I love this, because as a child, I remember having photos taken with, we used to call it the box brownie, I think.
Yes, it is.
And the little tiny photos that you used to get.
Which we have.
Yes, I've got a pile of them too, but these little cameras probably recorded more of Australia's history, or worldwide
Exactly.
history for that matter, than probably anything else. And I love these little things because it always looked like a face on the front. And I always thought the thing was looking at you as a little child. Found that very funny. We've also got some other things here. Just explain this, because this is really interesting. I know we're jumping backwards now, but this was something from Italy, wasn't it?
Yes, yes. Well, my elder sister, the one that got married, she did all the trousseau herself on the, what's those things?
The loom.
The,
The loom.
On the loom, yeah.
Yeah,
You
that
can
was
see
all
the weft
handmade.
and the waft, isn't it?
And the web.
Beautiful.
The west, what is it? The west?
Weft and the web, isn't it?
No, the weft and the waft, I think it is. The waft goes one way, the weft goes the other way, and with any luck you end up with something a little bit more special. This is fantastic, because this was one of your specialties as well, wasn't it?
Yes,
Or isn't
yeah, I
it?
used to do dresses,
Did you?
yokes, pockets
Yes.
and everything.
Yes.
All hand done though,
Not with the...
on the machine.
On the machine.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
On the machine.
Yes.
How did you control the machine? Give it a good speaking to.
No, you move your feet and you move your ring and you made it. And then you had to pull the threads where you wanted to do the,
That's incredible.
yes.
Now, not
How
only
did
that,
No, but how did you learn to do that? Did your mother teach you how to do
No,
that? Who
this
taught
was,
you?
once again, my mother had a sore ankle, I think it was. She was in hospital, and this other lady happened to be in hospital there, and she talked to Mum, and then she said, they explained I had the daughter and that, and she said, oh, would she be able to come and learn to do embroidery? because you see, she had the jobs for people to do them for.
Right.
She was like a dressmaker.
Maker.
And she said it will be great help to me because she needed someone because nobody else, you know.
That's
so
amazing.
So then I used to catch a bus and go into Cairns, and I learned how to do it that way.
Oh, just
But
beautiful.
not only that, but also painting. Now, we've got a couple of your paintings here, which are really quite lovely. Let's have a look at those. Was this of any particular scene anywhere?
Sometimes I'll come across a picture like in any paper like that because once I started, I've got to do one for Dora, one for this, one for the
One for the family.
And
Have you got this hanging on your wall?
Oh, they're mine.
They're yours.
All this is my collection, but there's a lot more. Like there's hundreds of them.
I'm sure there is.
Yes.
And this one here, which is also lovely.
That's actually me in the Flinders Ranges. She copied that from a photo.
Oh, really?
Really?
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Well, she didn't copy these from a photo because this is, first of all, oh, you only did this in 2000. Well, that's 18 years ago. You were a baby then. But when you have a look on this
in
side,
the 90s I started.
That was the Easter one.
That's lovely.
isn't that lovely?
Absolutely.
I turned
And-
70 and I started.
She started
Something
painting at
interesting.
70.
At 70.
Yeah.
See, it's never too late.
No,
It isn't. There's hope for you yet.
Thank you.
But the detail.
I love this too
Yes.
because this is just a, was it a coffee jar or something?
yes, yeah.
But she's done dozens of them. It's,
I'm turning. Go
Oh, I
back to the
love
close-up,
it.
chaps. There's more pictures as we revolve here.
Wow. They should be selling coffee in pots like that instead of the coffee that we get now.
It's moving pictures.
They'd be buying more coffee.
I went to a
love
church as a kid that looked exactly like that.
it. That is so lovely. I love that.
That's fantastic. There's so much we could show. There's another one here. Sorry, I'll just quickly turn that so the camera can grab that. But you've done so many things in your life. What do you think is your best achievement? And don't say the girl sitting next to you. What are you most proud of?
Well, I don't know. I think there's nothing really that I'm proud about. I'm happy to do them. But now I think, how the devil did I do it?
Exactly. When you think back of all the things you have done in your life, it's
Yeah.
incredible. We've got to take a short break, but we'll be back with these two lovely girls in just a minute.
Dora, your mother is just incredible. Are you an artist too? Have you learnt from your mum these skills?
I think there's 4 of us girls and we all have our own qualities. We all have picked up some of her traits because she cooks beautifully, she sews beautifully, she does gardening. Still to this day she has a beautiful garden and all the sewing. So each of us have picked up different aspects of,
Things that
of
she
her.
does.
Yes.
Well, they can all sew.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow, that's
Well,
wonderful.
that's
We all
always
sew,
handy.
we all cook. I mean,
Yes.
going to her place, you open the front door and you can smell the baking and there's always biscuits being made and she's, raised the grandkids and she's, helped us with everything.
Well,
so
I
we're
can't
all
believe she
grateful.
also made this on the sewing
Yeah,
machine.
that is done on the treadle.
Totally done on the
Yeah.
treadle sewing machine.
Yeah, and she still does the treadle sewing machine today.
That'll keep your muscles
And
in
she
good nick in your legs.
Still does her painting today. So
Keeps going.
yes, she's an inspiration to us all. Thank
And-
An inspiration,
grateful.
that's
An
exactly
inspiration.
the word,
True
and that's
inspiration.
exactly why we had her on the program. And rumour has it that she's the same age as the Queen.
That's right. You wouldn't believe it.
No.
Do we need to bow to you?
1927, I was born.
1927.
So
Amazing.
the Queen might be a year older than me, I don't know. But,
I'm not
let's
sure.
know.
She probably doesn't tell the truth either. Vittoria, it's been absolutely lovely to have met you. I wish we could go on chatting for hours because I know the stories are there.
Yeah.
Someone should make a documentary on you, I think.
I
That's
think
what
so.
should happen.
Oh, well, this is what Rosemary there want to do. Eventually she'll probably make a book.
Well,
should.
whatever it is,
Rosemary.
just such an inspiration. So if you need a little bit of a shot in the arm to think, oh, I'm getting too old to do that, here's a lady that's a perfect example of you're never too old, are you, Janice?
Never too old. Malcolm.
Never too old. So until next time, when we will be a week older, keep yourself nice till then.
Yes, take care.
Bye.